Hey YouTube world, it's Kirkpatrick. Thanks for dropping in here. Uh, those that follow my channel know I do a little gun thing every now and then. A lot of time I just BS on what's happening in my life, but I thought it'd be a little time for a history lesson tonight about an important firearm and the history behind it and how it came to be. We're going to talk about the 1886 Winchester tonight and how it was such an advancement for its time. I'm going to set it down because it's rather heavy, very heavy. I want to take you back in time to the American Civil War, 1861, 1864. Back in those days, you had a rifle, and it was black powder in, patch, ram the bullet down, cock it back, put a primer on the cap, pull the hammer back, boom. Do all that over again. Pull the rod out, dump your powder, put your patch, your wad, your bullet, ram it all down, put your rod back in place, because if you had to move, you need your rod to reload. Put it back up, cock it back, put a primer on it, fire. The tactics of war changed during the last year of the Civil War. The South realized they were losing badly. And it was no more just lining up like it was at Antietam or some of these other places. Just lining troops up, marching forward, and shooting your guns, and then one dropping down, the other one reloading, and another one group shoot. We were losing too much people on both sides. We wasn't accomplishing our objective. We were just losing people. And the smart people with some brains, militarily, there's been a few people with brains in the military, realized that tactics had to change. And in the South, tactics did change. They started ambushing. And they would have a young boy behind them, because most of the troops, a lot of people had died. And a 14-year-old boy behind them, they'd get in the woods and see somebody marching through, take a shot, hand him that, get another rifle, take a shot. The whole time the boy, the 14-year-old behind him, is reloading that rifle. And then somebody said, well, boy, it sure would be nice if we come up with a repeating rifle. Now, there was a stab by that, gosh, way back then. And like I said, do your own research. I'm trying to give you history, but some of it may be opinion from stuff I read. I think there's a guy named Voltaire somewhere in Italy, Spain, I don't know. He actually came up with a repeating rifle. Back there in the powder, the patch, the bullet stage, the primer, came up with these little bitty things they call cartridges. It had a lead projectile, it had a cloth thing that was full of the powder, but you still had to cock it, put the little thing in there, and boom. But you could reload that quick. Put your little thing in there, boom. Put your little thing in there, boom. Repeating rifle. I think his had up to 6 or 7 rounds. Anyway, it was a flop. You couldn't produce the cartridges to go in there without falling apart and demangling and whatever. Then there was a guy named Henry, and there's a few other in between. This fellow named Henry, he come up with One of the new things out then was a cartridge, and that was after the war. Now, there were some Henrys used during the Civil War by the 2nd Massachusetts and the 1st Massachusetts. Proved very effective. At the time, reloading them cartridges, they had a problem. They didn't send enough with the troops. They could only use them, and when they're out of bullets, they had to run. Powder was everywhere. But so the idea of a repeating arm changed warfare forever. I mean, back in the Roman days, back in the days of the American Civil War, big armies would just line up in front of each other and shoot. A few dropped dead, and they'd shoot again, and one would try to march forward, and the other one try to, But if we could sit there and go bing, 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 we can make them run. We can take the territory. Less death, less trauma on both sides. So the repeating arms idea was born, and Mr. Henry, he come up with a toggle action. And I wish I had one. I don't have one of the original Henrys. But it was a lever action. Now, mind you, the brass cartridge had came along. That was a significant driver of the whole deal. This right here is a 44 special. But what came along was a 44 Russian, then it was 4440, but let's just say 4440. I think there was a 45 Henry or 44 Henry. A little shorter than this. But anyway, this is what they came up with. Put the black powder in here, primer, bullet. Now you have a complete cartridge. No longer doing this, putting this, doing that. No longer doing that junk. The cartridge changed it all. Now we can make something that will repeat. Because the actions of doing this could only be human. But the actions of this is now mechanical. The powder, the bullet, the primer are all in one little compact package called a cartridge. So, had to have a rifle to shoot it. Now, don't get me wrong, put it in one little barrel, close it up, shoot it, single shot. But cock it back open, put another one in, single shot. Which, I'll get to that later. Yeah, but then the idea of sitting there and be able to go bam, 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 bam. 5 or 6 guys putting out a wall of fire. Back in the days where you had to go boom, boom. Yeah. You probably overcharged your powder or didn't get your bullet in the seat at the height of war. Yeah. They pretty rough. So the cartridge was born, and Mr. Henry come up with a lever action rifle that would feed a 4440 cartridge in there, and as the bolt carrier would come up, pick it out of the tube, the bolt would come by and push it in the barrel, and the bolt would lock in place. But it would lock in place by a toggle mechanism. Same toggle mechanism that made it go back and then forward, but it would lock up here with a little round joint, a toggle. So the pressure of the round, if it got too great, would overtax the bolt and the toggle, and it opened a breach up. So the gun was only effective on small pistol cartridges. Yeah. And about the same time all that was going on, 1873, 1876, somebody, Springfield Armory, in the Army was looking at buying this stuff. But Springfield Armory was making a hand cannon they were making a single breech. That's a rifle that's got a top here. Pop it open, stick a cartridge, close it, cock, boom. Kind of like a single shot break open. That's what I was saying I'd get to it. But they had come in with a caliber called the 45-70. Now the 44-40 was only effective to really about 60 yards. At that time, we were talking about black powder, remember? But the 45-70, with a 45 caliber bullet and 70 grains of black powder, was good out to about 200 yards. And the theory back in those days, if you hit your enemy, you want to decapacitate him till we ain't got to worry about him no more. Till he's gone. That hits you in the shoulder, I mean, you're going to die. Hits you in the elbow, you're liable to die. That's one bad mama jammer right there. So old man John Moses Browning, who was selling some patents to Winchester at the time, he had done duplicated the 1873 Henry into the 1873 Winchester, which still had the toggle action. But the old Henrys, you'd have to grab the top here, and they had a screw thing in the barrel, and that and the magazine tube would all move, and you drop your little cartridges down the tube and then put it back. So your cartridges fell down the tube in the Henry, but it didn't have a spring in it, so when you had to get one in the chamber, you had to hold it upright like you do a Daisy Red Ryder BB gun. You just couldn't sit there and go boom, boom. You had to go boom, let that cartridge fall down to the bottom like that, see. Old man Browning, he took that 73 design and made his 73. He put a loading gate in it. Loading gate. We throw the cartridges in here. We put a spring in there. So you can sit there and you can go boom, boom. And yeah, I could do it faster on a 92 than I can in 1886. But anyway, yeah, and you're putting big old hunk of lead there in range. At about 1,200 feet a second back in those days. Remember, all this stuff right here was around 600 or 500 feet. It wasn't really, it's black powder. So John Moses Browning, he decided he'd make a lever action that will handle that. Not just these little wimpy pistol cartridges, but handle a real deal rifle cartridge. So he come up with the 1886. And what he did, he still used a lot of Henry's ideas as far as the feeding goes, the loading gate that positions the round up to the barrel, and the bolt that slides forward. But instead of relying on the action to keep the bolt from blowing back, he decided to do this. See right there? He decided to put a lock in the bolt. So when the bolt closed, a lock would come up. So no matter how much pressure come out of that cartridge, you know, equal action, opposite reaction thing, firing pin hits the primer ignites the powder, and the whole thing goes off, where the least resistance goes out the barrel. There's your bullet flying out. Well, with that right there, now we had strong action. Now we could load the big boys in there. Yep. Now we could load the big boys in there. So that was what he designed. This is a saddle ring one. This is actually made by the Browning. well, made for the Browning Corporation. It was a Winchester 1886, but later on Browning made a few of his own. He made a few in Ogden, Utah, but he made most of them that they sold for a while in Japan. And this is from Muruko Arms in Japan. I'm not sure I'm saying that right, but I do know it's one of the most quality firearm plants around. Don't get me wrong, I wish I had me a 1886 Winchester, but then again, I'd be afraid to shoot it. This thing right here. Anyway, so that opened up a whole new door. Now you'd think the Army would have gone and said, let's get these. But no. They stayed with the dang old Springfields. Yep. Old 45-70, shoot one time, cock it open, pull the old cartridge out, drop the new one in, close it, and shoot. When they could have been going tang, 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 tang. Go figure. Probably political. Well, after a little while there, John Browning got to think about this thing, and he said, people were calling him all the time. Talking to him, said, "Hey man, we need one of them rifles that like that 1886, but I won't shoot my pistol rounds. You know, my 44 40s." So what did John do? 1892, he come out with the same lockup action. You see it? Same lockup action in a smaller gun to handle the pistol calibers. Yeah, so you can go with your pistol caliber. This is a gun, firearm, you'll see mostly on westerns. Is that what settled the West? But by 1892, the West was pretty much settled. It was 1873 and 1886 it settled the West. And a few Colt peacemakers, I was told. But just on the icks and giggles here, while we're on that little bit of topic, right along that time, there came out smokeless powder. Well, what's the advantages? Well, it don't blow a pile of smoke out of the barrel when you shoot it. It don't leave hardly any residue in your barrel or your action. Wow, smokeless powder. But it's a heap more powerful. Gotta be careful with it. So John Moses Browning was looking into it, and he decided he'd make a lever action to handle these new cartridges coming out. And one of the first ones was the 30-30. And I apologize, I should have got a 30-30 round out here. But the 30-30, smokeless powder came out. They also realized that if they necked down the cartridge casing, this is the cartridge casing, if they necked it down and made it smaller at the end, it would increase the pressure going in the smaller hole. Just like if you turn the water hose on outside, the garden hose, if you pinch that hose a little bit, right near the end of it, you get a little more pressure. Same thing. And bullets travel farther and faster. Now, you was able to hit something 250, 300 yards with reasonable accuracy. That changed the battlefield too. But John Moses Browning figured out that the two-piece toggle action, not toggle action, two-piece locking action that came up. Might not be strong enough for some of these cartridges. So what he done is really simple. If you look at this, alright, that's two toggle actions. But the hammer's here, so it hits a firing pin, and the firing pin, of course, travels through this bolt to hit the cartridge. Well, he said, well, that ain't no problem. I fixed that. Here's how I did it. Winchester 94. It's slick. It's been around a while too. This is an old one here. It isn't slick. What he done was put the bolt stop solid all the way across the back. Well, how's that gonna work when the hammer drops on a solid bolt stop? Well, he just drilled a little hole in the bolt stop where you can put the firing pin button right there. So when the hammer hits the firing pin button, firing pin moves, hits the cartridge, cartridge goes boom. Pretty much the same thing as 1886, but he didn't have to make it quite as beefier in the receiver section, because he found out the more resistance you get, the more energy is released on the other end and not swelling up in the receiver. Anytime you got movement in the receiver, when a round goes off, you won't have a problem. But anyhow, I hope y'all enjoyed that. I know I wanted to ramble about this for a few times, and I didn't really talk that much about the old Winchester 1886, but this gun right here killed a lot of buffalo unnecessarily. Because back in that time, 1886, the Industrial Revolution started, 1890. These were around. And the machines needed belts. Belts seemed to be the big thing, especially up there in the New England area. But to come down south, we just showed them how to use gears. But they were stubborn up there using belts, and belts need to be leather. They found out buffalo leather was best of all. Buffalo leather lasts a lot of them buffaloes were killed just for their skin and tanning out. The mule skinners, you better heard of them. Yep, and they tan them out, sell them to the big factories back east to turn the wheels that turn the machines that made everybody's life a little better. Or did it? I don't know. Anyhow, John Moses Brannon. This is only one of hundreds of genius ideas this man came up in the firearm industry. But it was right for its time. You know, if Custer would have had this at Battle of Little Bighorn, he probably would have won. But he had them old Springfields where you had to pop the top, put the cartridge in, close it, shoot, pop the top, take the cartridge out, put another one in, close the lid, cock back. He'd have done a lot better off with this. And the Indians was running around there, mostly with 1873 Winchesters, shooting these at them at a rate of going bam, bam, bam. All right, that's enough about that. Like I said, do your own research. Some of this is conjecture, some of this is opinion. It's history as I know it. I've done a lot of study of this. It's one of my hobbies. You ain't get too many hobbies. Guns is expensive too. I'd probably be better off collecting coins than doing this. But anyway, thanks for stopping by here at Kirkpatrick, Winchester, model 1886. God bless.